गिरिवरदारी यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय रात माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय गोपीचन वल्लभ गिरिवरदारी जय गोपीचन वल्लभ गिरिवरदारी यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा शील प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा शील प्रभुपदा जीवं विश्वपाद ब्रह्मं च परमदक्ष शुद्ध सदस्य श्रीमती स्वयं कैसे मुक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। इस्कॉन संस्थापकाचार्य श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जीवं विष्णुपाद परमहंस च परमदक्ष शुद्ध सदस्य श्रीमद भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय। जीवं विष्णुपाद लखुर किशोरदास महाराज की जय। जीवं विष्णुपाद सच्चिदानंद श्री भक्तिवेदांत ठाकुर की जय। जीवं विष्णुपाद वैष्णव सार्वभौम जगन्नाथ दास महाराज की जय। जय श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रमना श्री जीव गोपाल भट्टदास गोस्वामी प्रभु की जय। नवाचार्य श्रीदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कौशिक कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद वेद दादार गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री राधा कृष्ण को गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिकोर्धन की जय। श्री गौरांगी कांगलोरेश्वर भगवान की जय। श्री मायापुर धाम की जय। श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। गंगामयी की जय। यमुना मई की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। ग्रंथ श्रीमद भागवतम की जय। इस्कॉन वर्तमान गुरुवंद की जय। समाधि भक्तवंद की जय। गौरव प्रेमानंद हरि हरि बोल। All glories to the assembled. This all glories to the assembled. This all glories to the assembled. This all glories to Shiguru and Shigauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam. Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudire. Nashtaprayeshu Apatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtihi. Hare Krishna, welcome to the Friday morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today we are discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 9, text 57 to text 62. And most of the slokas, there is no purport, so I'll go on reading. Text 57. Mrishtachatvarat atyatha margam chandana charchitam lajakshatai pushpafalais tanduler baliviryutam. Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All the quadrangles, lanes and streets in the city and the raised sitting places at the crossings were thoroughly cleansed and sprinkled with sandalwood water, and auspicious grains such as rice and barley, and flowers, fruits, and many other auspicious presentations were scattered all over the city. No purport. Text 58-59. Dhruvaya patidrishtaya tatra tatra purastriyah siddhartakshata dadyambu dhurva pushpa falani cha upajahruh prayunjanha vatsalyad ashisa satihi shinvam statvalgu gitani pravishad bhavanam pituho. Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Then as Dhruva Maharaj passed on the road, from every place in the neighborhood, all the gentle household ladies assembled to see him, and out of material affection they offered their blessings, showering him with white mustard seeds, barley, curd, water, and newly grown grass, fruits, and flowers. In this way, Dhruva Maharaj, while hearing the pleasing songs sung by the ladies, entered the palace of his father. No purport. Text 60. Mahamani Bratamaye Satasmin Bhavanottame Lalito Nitaram Pitra Nevasad Divi Devavad. Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Dhruva Maharaj thereafter lived in his father's palace, which had walls bedecked with highly valuable jewels. His affectionate father took particular care of him, and he dwelled in that house just as the demigods live in their palaces in the higher planetary systems. Text 61. Paya Fena Nibash Shaya Dhanta Rukma Paricha Daha Asanani Maharhani Yatra Raupma Upaskaraha. Translation says, the bedding in the palace was as white as the foam of milk and was very soft. The bedsteads were made of ivory with embellishments of gold, and the chairs, benches, and the other sitting places and furniture were made of gold. Text 62. Yatra spatika kutyeshu mahamarakateshu cha manipradipa abanti lalana ratna samyutaha. Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The palace of the king was surrounded by walls made of marble with many engravings made of valuable jewels like sapphires, which depicted beautiful women with shining jewel lamps in their hands. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The description of King Uttanapada's palace depicts the state of affairs many hundreds and thousands of years ago, long before Srimad Bhagavatam was compiled. Since it is described that Maharaj Dhruva ruled for 36,000 years, he must have lived in the Satya Yuga when people lived for 100,000 years. The life duration in the 4 yugas are also mentioned in the Vedic literature. In the Satya Yuga, people used to live for 100,000 years. In the Treta Yuga, people lived for 10,000 years. In the Dwapara Yuga, they lived for 1,000 years. And in this age, Kali Yuga, people may live up to 100 years. With the progressive advance of each new yuga, the duration of human life is reduced by 90%, from 100,000 to 10,000, from 10,000 to 1,000, and from 1,000 to 100. It is said that Dhruva Maharaj was the great grandson of Lord Brahma. This indicates that Dhruva Maharaj's time was in the Satya Yuga, in the beginning of creation. During one day of Lord Brahma, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, there are many Satya Yugas. According to the Vedic calculation, at the present moment, the 28th millennium is current. It can be calculated that Dhruva Maharaj lived many millions of years ago, but the description of the palace of Dhruva's father is so glorious that we cannot accept that advanced human civilization did not exist even 40 or 50,000 years ago. There were walls like those in the palace of Maharaja Uttanapada even very recently during the Mughal period. Anyone who has seen the Red Fort in Delhi must have marked that the walls are made of marble and were once decorated with jewels. During the British period, all these jewels were taken away and dispatched to the British Museum. The conception of worldly opulence was formerly based mainly on natural resources such as jewels, marble, silk, ivory, gold, and silver. The advancement of economic development was not based on big motor cars. Advancement of human civilization depends not on individual enterprises, but on possessions of natural wealth and natural food, which is all supplied by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so that we may save time for self realization and success in the human form of body. Another aspect of this verse is that Dhruva Maharaj's father, Uttanapada, would very soon give up attachment for his palaces and would go to the forest for self realization. From the description of Srimad Bhagavatam, therefore, we can take a very thorough comparative study of modern civilization and the civilization of mankind in the other millenniums, Satya, Treta, and Dwapara Yuga. Om Agyanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamahyam Pradati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shivadapadakamlam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Satvaitam Savadutam Parajana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha Ye Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radha Vindavneshwari Vishabhanusite Pranamami Haripriye Panchakalpatarubhyasya Vashnavya Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Moham Karvati Vachalam Pangam Nandi Padmaham Shri Gurum Devatanam Paramadamatam Shri Chaitanya Ishvara. Hare Krishna. So we see in these verses today, as Dhruva Maharaj is returning back to his palace of his father King Uttanapada, a grand reception has been organized for him, and all over the places the streets and lanes have been decorated with a lot of flowers and sprinkled with sandalwood water, which is very, very auspicious, and many grains such as fruits and flowers, rice, barley, etc. were all scattered all over the city. So these are indications of a grand welcome for Dhruva Maharaj. In text number 58 and 59, it is mentioned that as Dhruva Maharaj passed on the road, all over the places there were many household ladies who assembled to see him, and out of material affection, they offered their blessings, showering him with white mustard seeds, barley curd, etc. This way, Dhruva Maharaj, while hearing the pleasing songs sung by the ladies, entered the palace of his father. So we see here as to how when Dhruva Maharaj was entering the palace, many household ladies were assembled and they all sang the glories, and simultaneously they were also offering blessings to Dhruva Maharaj. So we'll understand the importance of blessings in this particular sloka. So it is mentioned in the Shastras that blessings are a great boon for any individual living being. They are like a sweet, but nevertheless, it also depends on the person who is giving the blessing, and also the person who is receiving the blessings. But the person who receives the blessing, he should have some faith in the blessings that are being given, and also he should be in a position to take whatever blessings are being given, so which may not happen many times. So that's why it is said that generally material blessings are temporary, but spiritual blessings are permanent. So blessings should be taken from seniors, and the seniors should give their blessings to the juniors. Some examples we will look at the various types of blessings. Blessings can also be a boon. Sometimes blessings may not be right for the person if he's not taking the right spirit. That's why it is said that one should have faith and should be in a position to digest it also. We'll look at these examples. So, in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 19th chapter, we find that Parikshit Maharaj was cursed to die in 7 days by a snake bite. And when he sat on the bank of Ganges to hear Srimad Bhagavatam from Srila Sukadeva Goswami, many great sages, rishis, and all were present, including his own father Vyasadeva, his spiritual master Narad Muni, etc. And they all welcomed Parikshit Maharaj and blessed him for his spiritual advancement. Now, the thing is, Parikshit Maharaj was cursed to die in 7 days, and he comes to hear Srimad Bhagavatam from Srila Sukadeva Goswami for 7 days. So one should think as how can this be looked at as a blessing? The way it is looked at, should be looked at is that how one should leave his body. So Parikshit Maharaj is going to listen for 7 days and nights continuously Srimad Bhagavatam, which is what is required for one to leave the body. Nowadays, people don't understand the seriousness of that. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, whatever consciousness is there uh, at the time of leaving the body, that is what will be the consciousness for that person in his next body. So there is nothing better than hearing the glories of the Lord from Srimad Bhagavatam at the time of leaving his body. So devotional, this is the 9 processes are mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam itself as Savanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, and so on. But of which Shravanam is the most important. That is, hearing about the Lord is very important. So devotional service is so powerful that by just hearing the glories of the Lord, all auspiciousness are created. And particularly when there are great sages present and they are blessing Parikshit Maharaj, it was basically a very auspicious occasion. One might think that death is not auspicious, but then in the case of Parikshit Maharaj, it was a great blessing. So though he was cursed by a Brahmana boy to die in 7 days' time, but still Parikshit Maharaj took this, the right spirit that he realized this was arranged by the Lord himself. Because when he was in the womb of his mother, Uttara, then the Lord saved him and from being killed by by Ashwatthama's Brahmastra. So he realized that if the Lord had saved him when he was to take birth, uh, even before he was to take birth, when he was protected by the Lord in the womb of his mother, so even this curse by a immature Brahmana boy was also took place by the will of the Lord. So he took it as a blessing, being a great devotee of the Lord. If it is not a devotee, then they might have looked at otherwise. So Parishit Maharaj was not afraid of death, nor was he bewildered by a curse or something like that. Another example in Srimad Bhagavatam is that of Narad Muni. Narad Muni heard from the Bhakti Vedantas quite some time when he was a small boy. And the result of that hearing was that he developed detachment from worldliness. And so when he was a small boy, he got the news of his mother being bitten by a snake and then she left her body. But then he did not have, it was very easy for him to get detached from that news. So that's why it is mentioned that it's not very easy for a person like Narad Muni was a very small boy to take it in the right spirit. But then because he had heard from the Bhakti Vedantas, the rishis, about the glories of Bhagavatam and about the Lord, it was very easy for him to remember the Lord at the time of his mother's death because nobody was there with him at that point of time. He was a small boy, lone one. So that is why it is said that one should always think of the Lord. The mind should not forget the Lord even for a moment of time because we don't know how, who is going to leave the body, when, where, etc. So one should always remember the Lord and offer obeisances to Him. And one who lives like that, always thinking of the glories of the Lord, receives the blessings of the Lord by the Lord giving him shelter at his lotus feet. And it is said that if there is even one devotee who takes birth in a family, it creates a lot of auspiciousness for the entire family. And the typical example is given in the seventh canto of Srimad Bhagavatam about Prahlad Maharaj. Hiranyakashipu was as a demon, but Prahlad Maharaj was born as a great devotee of the Lord in that family. So finally, when Hiranyakashipu was killed, the Lord wanted to give benedictions to Prahlad Maharaj. First, Prahlad Maharaj hesitated because he said, it's a business if I ask for something from you. But finally, still Narasimhadev was insistent that Prahlad Maharaj should take some benedictions. At that time, Prahlad Maharaj asked that his father be excused for all the abominable activities that he committed on his own son. So to which Narasimhadev replied that your father has already been delivered, not only about your father, but then 21 generations have been delivered by the presence of just Prahlad Maharaj as a devotee in that family. So this is how one devotee in a family is a great boon or blessing of the Lord itself. That is another example in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Brahma is to create the entire material manifestation. So he cannot create of his own. So he prays to the Lord that he may be engaged in the material creation by the empowerment of the Lord, but at the same time, he doesn't want to be entangled in the process of material creation. Many times, what may happen is that if we are doing something very, very important, we finally think that I am the cause of that. I did this, I did that. But we should take the example of Brahma, where he prays that he wanted protection from the Lord, that he didn't want to be carried away by the influence of the illusory energy of the Lord, that is Maya. Because creation is a very big exercise, so Brahma should not get carried about that. So unless and until someone is protected by the Lord, one can fall down from his spiritual position. So that's why one has to always constantly pray to the Lord for protection and blessing of the Lord to carry out one's duty. Similarly, in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Kapiladev is giving instructions on devotion service. He says that the Lord is eternally very beautiful and he is worshipable by all the inhabitants of every planet. He is ever youthful and always eager to bestow his blessings upon his devotees. So, the previous example I cited how Hiranyakashipu got delivered by the presence of Prahlad Maharaj. And in this verse, Lord Kapila gives instruction saying that the Lord is always ready to bestow his blessings upon his devotees. So the Lord is always very eager, but then one should be in a position to receive the blessings in the right spirit. So we see that how Parikshit Maharaj also took it in the right spirit, though he was cursed to die. It was a blessing for him. Another example is that about in the fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Daksha, he curses Lord Shiva. Uh, Lord Shiva, being a chief of the demigods, he is supposed to take the oblations or the sacrifice that was performed by the demigods. But Lord Shiva did not come. And then, because there was enmity between Daksha and Lord Shiva was a great Vaishnava. But Daksha looked at him from the materialistic point of view. So, and Sati first went, she left her body, and then there was a big fight between the followers of Daksha and followers of Lord Shiva. So, Lord Shiva did not come for the sacrifice. So, there is a mention that because of this, Daksha cursed Lord Shiva, saying that it is good that Shiva did not come and honor the part of the sacrifice along with demigods. So there is a mention by Srila Prabhupada. He says that Lord Shiva is the greatest of the demigods and is a great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So even if he did not eat with the demigods or sit with materialistic persons like the other demigods, it was perfectly fit for Lord Shiva because he was a great Vaishnava. So Shiva did not have to eat or sit with the demigods who are very too materialistic. So Daksha cursed Shiva and then it was a boon on Lord Shiva himself. Another example is in the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Lord's anger, in the 6th chapter, there's a mention, it says that when the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes angry or kills a demon, materially this may appear unfavorable, but spiritually it's a blissful blessing upon him. Therefore, pure devotees do not make any distinction between the Lord's anger and his blessings. They see both with reference to the Lord's behavior with others and themselves. A devotee does not find fault with the behavior of the Lord in any circumstance. That means when the Lord gets angry on somebody or the Lord gives a boon to someone, both are blessings because the Lord's anger and as well as blessings are absolute. So a pure devotee of the Lord does not differentiate between these two, and he does not find fault with the Lord under any circumstances. Rather, even if the Lord gets angry, a devotee looks at it as a blessing for him. There is another example in the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where there was a great king called King Anga. Now, he had a son in the name of Vena. Now, Vena was a cruel person, and right from his birth, he always used to kill others, even from his birth, when he was a small boy. So, because of this, it is mentioned that King Anga could easily develop detachment from the family. Generally, when there's a small child, the child is very, very attractive. The child smiles, one gets carried away by all those things. But then, one day it is said that King Anga developed detachment because of his son, cruel son. So one day in the middle of the night, he left his home and his wife, everybody, and then left to the forest for self-realization. So there is a mention, Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport, that because of the blessings of a great soul, one becomes materially opulent. The point is that if one has become very opulent, he cannot just attain opulence as it is. But because he has performed a lot of austerities in his previous life, in terms of voluntary fasting or taking up some austerities for pleasing the Lord, one might get some opulence. But then it is not very easy to give up attachment to this opulence. But then King Anga had a great kingdom also and a very faithful wife. But it was not difficult for King Anga to leave home because he was already fed up with his son, who was a cruel person. So it was very easy for him to walk out for self-realization. There is another example in the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam where there is a mention that Prithu Maharaj performed sacrifice, and the Lord, Prithu Maharaj himself was an empowered incarnation of the Lord, and Lord Krishna appeared in the sacrificial arena performed by Prithu Maharaj, and the Lord told him that very shortly after I leave, you will receive a very great guest in the name of the 4 Kumaras. And the 4 Kumaras, actually, after Lord left, the 4 Kumaras came to see him. And then the king thought that, in fact, the king said, "O Brahmana, O powerful," when the sages appeared, the king said that, "O Brahmana, O powerful," and formally Lord Vishnu showed me his causeless mercy, indicating that you would come to my house one day and to confirm that blessing you all have come. So Prithu Maharaj recollected that first Lord Krishna appeared being satisfied with the sacrifice performed by Prithu Maharaj. And the Lord not only appeared but also paved the way for the Kumaras to appear there. And similarly, so when the Kumaras came, Prithu Maharaj recollected that this was a blessing of the Lord. So many times the blessings of the Lord can have multiple effects. And in this case, we see that the Lord left and then immediately the Kumaras appeared. Then in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a mention of how Chitraketu was cursed by Mother Parvati. Chitraketu was passing by. He was a great king, and in fact, when he passed by, Lord Shiva was sitting in an embarrassing position with Parvati. And seeing that, Chitraketu just laughed at it, but Parvati could not digest it, and she cursed Chitraketu to become a demon in his next birth. Chitraketu did not get disturbed, but Lord Shiva, seeing that how uh, Chitraketu was undisturbed, he tells Parvati, goddess Parvati, that though the king was cursed to become a demon, still the king did not mind, because a devotee is actually very, very humble and meek, and he accepts any condition of life as a blessing from the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada also quotes from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Lord Brahma accepts, and he says that a devotee should always accept any condition of life as a mercy of the Lord or as a blessings of the Lord. Similarly, we find in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Queen Kunti, in her prayers, she prays to the Lord that please give me more. Actually, Queen Kunti was personally protected by the Lord in comparison to Lord's own mother Devaki, because Devaki had many others to take care, but in the case of Queen Kunti, there was no one. So Queen Kunti always remembers the Lord, and she always welcomes miseries of life, saying that these troubles were actually a blessing because they forced her to always think of Krishna always. So this is the prayer of Queen Kunti itself. In one more example that is there in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, which mentions about how when Mahaprabhu used to conduct his kirtan, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to always conduct the kirtan in Srinivas Pandita's house during the night time. And that time the kirtan was not allowed for everyone, but except for close associates of the Lord. So there was a Brahmana who wanted to enter, but he was not permitted. So one day he told Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I shall now curse you, for your behavior has greatly aggrieved me. You shall be bereft of all material happiness. So this Brahmana cursed for not being given permission to enter Kirtan, and he said that you will be bereft of all material happiness. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt actually very happy at that time, because Mahaprabhu, though he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he appeared as a devotee of the Lord. So when he was cursed that he will never have material happiness, Mahaprabhu was very, very happy. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took this as a blessing, and soon after that it is mentioned that the Lord took sannyasa. Another example in Chaitanya Charitamrita is also about Sri Raghunath Das Goswami. Raghunath Das Goswami was known for his renunciation. So though he was from a very rich family, finally at the last stage of his renunciation, he used to stand outside the temple of Lord Jagannath, and whatever was rejected food, that was collected and washed. And this Raghunath Das Goswami would honor it. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came and saw him, Mahaprabhu himself took some of that and thus blessed Raghunath Das Goswami for his renunciation. Mahaprabhu does not have to do that, but then he showed his compassion to Raghunath Das Goswami, and that was a blessing to Raghunath Das Goswami itself. Another example is given about Amrish Maharaj. He was protected by Sudarshan Chakra because he was blessed by great sages. So by the blessings of great sages, one gets a devotional service to Krishna. Then, of course, there are three different types of blessings that one can get from devotees. The three are, one is the dust from the feet of a Vaishnava. Second is the water that has washed the feet of the Vaishnavas. And the third is the remnants of the prasadam honored by the Vaishnavas. So one should always try and aspire to get any of these three. And if one has got it, it's a great blessing for that person who is receiving it. Krishna himself set an example when he received Sudama Brahmana. Krishna washed the feet of Sudama Brahmana and sprinkled that water on his head. Lord does not have to do that, but he did it for setting the right example in the society. Another important point that is mentioned in the purport is that how during those days Dhruva Maharaj palace, King Uttanapada's palace and all were greatly decorated by marbles and so forth. So uh, during the Esther years, the kings were all known as Rajarishis. Rajarishi means saintly kings. They were all great devotees of the Lord. And that was possible because though they were kings, they were all very humble by nature. And kings had a lot of good qualities in them. And so, because the kings were all devotees of the Lord, they depended mostly on the natural resources that are provided by the Lord, like pearls, gems, etc., which has now got degraded to uh, currency, which was once upon a time a paper, now to cards, credit card, debit card, which is a form of plastic. And further degradation has happened with the people pay on UPay, GPay, and all those things by just giving the mobile numbers. So those days, the natural resources were pearls, gems, and etc. People were known to possess wealth depending upon how much they possess these natural resources. And another important point is that in those days there was no electricity available, but the light was emanating from the illumination of these jewels. So palaces were decorated with these jewels, and there was no need for artificial electricity that we require. So the natural reflection that came out of the jewels was sufficiently illuminating the entire palace. Also, the Lord provided adequate food from agriculture. There was no shortage of food during those days because people were very happy with what they got. But nowadays, as Kali Yuga has progressed, people are very, very greedy. They are very lusty. And so we find there is a shortage of food. But actually, Srila Prabhupada always mentions that there is no shortage of food. Even an animal, Srila Prabhupada mentions in his lectures, that an elephant eats about 40 kgs of food every day. And so many elephants are there throughout the world. And the Lord has provided sufficient food for all these elephants. How come the Lord will not provide for the human beings? So the point is that though the food has got contaminated, we find that many cereals have been developed in the form of nylon sabaki, and nylon and so forth. Now, in spite of the contamination of food, uh, there is a shortage of food because people are very, very lusty and greedy. They want to store and make too much money. So that is why we find scarcity, because people are not God conscious. Another important point that is mentioned in these purports is that those days there was no motor car and so forth, but people were very, very happy. They used to walk down to their workplace and they were living happily. And there was, after the cars came, we find there are many pollutions, there are many diseases, and there are so many accidents taking place and all those things. So this is not advancement of civilization, rather it's a degradation of civilization that has happened. Another example that is given in this purport is that about people were using natural resources like silk and cotton for their dresses, but then subsequently these got replaced with nylon, polyester, etc. So civilization has not advanced with science, but rather it has got degraded. And if you look at even the weapons of the Esther years, they used to have Brahmastra and all, which were very, very powerful. And these weapons were being fired by mantras. But after the development of nuclear weapons and all those things, there are so many issues regarding wastage of nuclear waste, because any nuclear waste can be harmful to the civilization as such, that can cause mass destruction. Srila Prabhupada also quoted during his time that Calcutta was a very, very, very neat and clean city, but which one cannot agree now because it has got so much of pollution overpopulated in that one city. So also people have lost their memories because they have got calculators and computers. But earlier people used to remember everything in their mind. In fact, scriptures used to be heard once and they used to remember everything. But nowadays, because as with Kali Yuga progressing, people have lost their memory also. Srila Prabhupada clearly mentioned that factories cannot produce food, but factories have only brought disaster to the human civilization. And there's also mentioned that the yesteryears were progressive because Krishna always emphasized, and people also emphasized on protection of cows and religious principles. Nowadays, cows are being sent to slaughterhouses to be killed, and religious principles are also being violated. So, in the absence of these two, both cow protection and absence of religious religious principles, people can never be happy. But once cows are protected and religious principles are established, prosperity will prevail all over. Another point that is mentioned, Srila Prabhupada specifically mentions the last purport about the glory of Taj Mahal, which was a great architecture. So the architecture of the Taj Mahal is so great. I have not seen it, but then people who have seen it say it's a great architecture. And that cannot be made by any of the architects of today. But those days, they were not qualified architects, but they could build such great memorials also. This is how the civilization was. Srila Prabhupada also mentions that the British took away all the wealth of India. So India had very lot of natural resources, but they were taken away by the British Empire when they ruled India. And there is one pastime of Srila Prabhupada where it is mentioned that when Srila Prabhupada was in London, those days nobody used to use toothbrush. But so Srila Prabhupada, when he was walking around along with his disciples, he asked one of his disciples to get one twig from a neem tree because Srila Prabhupada used to brush his teeth with neem twigs. So he asked one disciple to take a small twig. And when the disciple took this, the security guard immediately came and told Srila Prabhupada that this is a property of the queen and it cannot be taken like that. Srila Prabhupada replied that the British plundered the entire wealth of India and these people are worried about one twig of a neem tree. So this is how the situation is. There is another mention as to how in the last stage, King Uttanapada would leave his palace and soon go to the forest for self-realization. So the kings of the yesteryears, they used to live in the palace, and once they have a trained son who can continue to rule, they would hand over the kingdom and then go to the forest for practicing self-realization. We find examples like in here itself, King Uttanapada it was predicted that he would retire to the forest for self-realization. Another example is Bharat Maharaj. Uh, Rishabdev was a great king and he was also an empowered incarnation of the Lord himself. So Rishabdev, when he wanted to go for self-realization, he handed over his kingdom to Bharat Maharaj and he had 100 sons. And he called all his sons and told them that they should respect Bharat Maharaj as the king and that he was handing over the kingdom to Bharat Maharaj. So this is how the kings of the yesteryears were all detached. They were not attached to their kith and kin. Once they have groomed someone to be taking up the heir to the throne, they would go to the forest for self-realization. But nowadays we find that so many times people take up within the family itself, though if the father has left the politics, son might take it up. But many times we see that most of the times the progeny has not been trained enough to take up the responsibility. But those days, they were training their children in such a way that they would groom themselves and take up the position of ruling the kingdom. So Uttanapada was also preparing to go to the forest for self-realization. Because nowadays kings are not, Kshatriyas are not aware of the spiritual importance. So that is why they are sticking to the throne even at the last stage of their life. And they are fighting for fighting a battle for keep occupying the throne because they are not aware of what is going to be their next life. It is also mentioned that Uttanapada's brother Priyavrata also did not take up the ruling of the kingdom, but then Lord Brahma wanted him to take it up as a service to Krishna, and then he did it. So we might not find any politician who is not willing to take up the throne. Everybody is greedy and they want to sit in the chair and rule the kingdom. But then these examples of Priyaprata, Uttanapada are great examples of how the kings of yesteryears were. That's how they were called as Raja Rishis. And Srila Prabhupada also concludes the purport today, saying that how civilization has degraded. But then, in current these days, it may not be practically possible for one to go to the forest for self-realization. But then, if one comes to this Krishna conscious movement and joins the movement, that is enough, because the Krishna conscious movement is designed in such a way that one can get trained as to how to leave the body. How to live is not very important, but how to leave the body is very important, so that one can prepare his next life. Either he go back to Godhead, or by becoming a devotee of the Lord, or takes birth in the lower planets or upper planets, wherever, depending upon his karma. So Krishna conscious movement is designed in such a way that one can get trained as to how to leave the body. So with this, I conclude the class for the day. Anybody has got any questions or any comments, they can ask me on today's subject. Any questions, comments? There's nothing. I'll close consider the class as closed. Granthrat Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you all very much.